Well, hello there, nerds. I'm your host, CuppaJoey, and welcome to our second episode of Hobby Drama. Now, unlike our first episode, this one is involving characters I think most of you should have heard of by now. At least, you should have figured it out if you read the title of this episode. That's right, nerds. Today we're going to be having a look at the Muppets, and more specifically, the firing of Kermit the Frog. I'd like to say thank you to Shirai-san for being the one to write up all of the information about the Muppets. It was very informative. They're also the one that linked all of the articles and other YouTube videos that I'm going to be referencing in their post. So a lot of the work for this video was actually put in by them, so I'd like to say a huge thank you to them for writing this up and for giving me permission to read it out, and if you're listening to this, I do hope that you enjoy. But for now, it's time to get into some hobby drama. If you enjoy watching my content, then please consider throwing me a few pennies down at my Ko-fi down below. Currently, I am just making these in my back room, and I'm making absolutely no money from this whatsoever. If you would like to just buy me a coffee, you can throw me as little as £3 down below. If not, thanks for just enjoying my content, and I hope you enjoy the episode. From the Muppets, Kermit Gets Fired, the tale of the departure of Steve Whitmire. Let me tell you of what is probably the biggest shake-up in the Muppet fandom in recent years. A story that is, in every sense of the word, a mess. Even now, people are split on who was in the right or in the wrong. Of course, I'm talking about the fiasco of the firing of Steve Whitmire. It's time to meet the Muppets. Context. Note, links in this section of Muppet Wiki articles, mainly for things that don't have a large impact on the story. They're just there for context and so I don't ramble. Little editor/narrator's note here. I have to say that Shirai's-san was actually really helpful in linking all these little articles. They do actually give quite a good amount of, context and backstory if you would like to have a little look. I will provide links down below, and I will, expand a little bit where I think it needs expanding. So without any further ado, put your feet up, get a nice cup of tea, and we're going to bite down on the bread and butter of this Muppet sandwich. In 1955, Jim Henson created his first TV show, Sam and Friends. One of the main characters of this bizarre 5-minute local puppet show was Kermit, whom Henson would continue to use over the course of his entire career. Over the years, Kermit evolved from a weird abstract lizard-like creature to a frog who made a name for himself on both the big and small screens. When he wasn't doing an interview with a big-name late-night host or teaching kids on Sesame Street, he was the most lovable host of The Muppet Show and a staple in all Muppet movies and shows afterwards. That involved the Muppet Show crew. Even today, Kermit the Frog is seen as a big celebrity, quite a feat for someone who was born from an old coat and ping-pong balls. On the 16th of May 1990, Jim Henson passed away. It shocked everyone, and after taking time to look back at his life and mourn his loss, there was a bit of dilemma. There's no longer a performer for several characters, including Kermit. You see, with the Muppets, it's not just a character you voice. Every Muppet is brought to life by their puppeteer. These puppeteers have years of experience performing their characters, and they know everything about them inside and out. You can't just get some random guy who could do a pretty good Kermit impression and say, "Hey, you're Kermit now." It's not how it works. These are beloved characters to many people, and in the hands of the wrong person, they would feel wrong. Trust me, fans will go crazy over this. So here, OP was very kind to link us to one of the wiki pages that they have mentioned earlier. This one is called Save the Muppets, which just shows how beloved the Muppets truly are. I mean, I do enjoy the Muppets myself. I find the films really funny, and I really enjoyed the most recent TV show that they had. It was a little bit more adult humor. It was very neat, and as you can see, so many people absolutely love the Muppets to the point that there were protests over this. Essentially, they held open auditions for puppeteers, saying you could be a puppeteer, voice, all that, and people were not happy about it. The fans created this Save the Muppets campaign. Save the Muppets was a fan-based effort to bring attention to a move being made by the Walt Disney Company in 2005, which called for the casting of multiple performers for the core Muppets characters. I think that that's what's the most important thing here, is the fact that it is Kermit. It's Miss Piggy, it's Gonzo, it's the most important characters within this franchise. And just to give a little bit more context into the fan campaign, it says here, fearing that the core Muppeteers would be replaced by a team of alternatives, a group of Muppet fans started a fan campaign, Save the Muppets. The campaign was organised by Kynan Barker and launched in August 2005. The Save the Muppets campaign used the slogan "One Muppet, One Voice" in its opposition to the idea of multiple performers for the characters. Aside from bringing awareness to the issue, the campaign organised letter writing efforts and gathered signatures on an online petition in hopes of reversing Disney's plans to cast alternative performers. Over 3,600 signatures were collected on the petition. The campaign ran from 2005 to 2006. In 2008, the campaign website was closed. So, if you're just going to shake up a fandom that's well established and well loved, yeah, the fans might have a thing or two to say about it, as you can see here. So, given that we now know that the fans aren't shy to voice their concerns, let's see what happened. Enter Steve Whitmire. He had been working with the Muppets since the late 70s, performing characters such as Rizzo the Rat on The Muppet Show and Wembley Fraggle on Fraggle Rock. He had known and worked with Jim personally, so he had knowledge of how his characters worked. Steve took a number of Jim's characters in the years after his death, including Kermit, Sesame Street's Ernie, and a number of less important characters which don't really have much to do with the story at all. This is mainly about Kermit. In 2004, Disney bought the rights to the Muppet Show Trooper characters from the Jim Henson Company. From now on, every big business decision would be made by the suits working for the Mouse. During the 2000s, multiple attempts were made to pitch a new Muppet show with little success after their last one, Muppets Tonight, bombed. That would change in 2015, where the new show was greenlit for ABC, featuring the cast in a The Office-styled mockumentary with more adult themes. It was simply titled The Muppets. From here on out, I'll be referring to it as Muppets 2015. This was the show that I was referring to earlier that I really enjoyed. It is genuinely really funny, and if you like any of the Muppets films, if you enjoyed the Muppets as a kid, then you'll definitely enjoy Muppets 2015. The show failed to impress. Okay, well, it impressed me. Never mind on that one. The show failed to impress, with critics disliking the portrayal of the characters, as well as some "think of the children" type people dissing the show's more adult edge. Fan reaction to it was more positive, although many agreed that the characters needed to be reworked. Even after a change in showrunners and a retool of the whole show, ratings dropped, and it was cancelled after only one season. Steve was one of the people who didn't like the direction this show took the characters. This is the catalyst for what would happen later. Moving right along to the actual drama. On the 10th of July 2017, Tough Pigs and The Muppet Mindset, two of the most popular Muppet fan sites, broke the news that Steve Whitmire had left the Muppets, and that Matt Vogel, a veteran Muppeteer who is known for being the current performer for Big Bird and Count Von Count, as well as, ironically, Constantine, would be taking his place as Kermit. They received this information directly from Disney, who also informed them that Matt's first appearance as Kermit would be in a Muppet Thought of the Week video. This video was intended to be released the week after the news broke, but was delayed until August, presumably because of the ugly fight about to happen. Muppet fans were upset about the news, while also wishing Matt good luck. I don't want to post links or images of forum posts without any other author's permission, as I feel it would be intrusive. But I'm hopeful someone who was actually involved in the Muppet fan community when this went down would be willing to share their thoughts here. So far, I haven't seen any thoughts commented on this post. I'm not going to post any screenshots or look for them either, because I feel that that would be counterintuitive to Shirai's son here, bless them, going, "Oh, I'm not going to do anything without permission," and then for me to go, "Ha, sod it, I'll show you anyway." I'm not going to do that either. Many were surprised too. This was Steve's dream job. He had been so open about working with the Muppets for years. There's no way he would, just up and leave. Right? Right they were. A day later, Steve made a post on his, now seemingly deleted blog, explaining what happened in his own words. As I am sure you can imagine, I've experienced every possible emotion since October 2016, when I received a phone call from the Muppet Studios executive to say that they were recasting. Through a new business representative, I've offered multiple remedies to their two stated issues which had never been mentioned to me prior to that phone call. I wish that we could have sat down, looked each other in the eye, and discussed what was on their minds before they took such a drastic action. I have remained silent in the last 9 months in hopes that the Disney company might reverse their course. Doing what is best for the Muppets is the lens through which all my interactions have been filtered. Given the opportunity, I remain willing to do whatever is required to remedy their concerns because I feel my continued involvement with the characters is in the best interest of the Muppets. Essentially, Steve was kicked off. Many fans immediately started rallying towards Steve, feeling bad that the corporate overlords of the mouse trademark got him removed for wanting to preserve the magic of the Muppets. Why would they do such a thing? The Muppets needed Steve. Some even believed that Disney was going to ruin everything with this decision, and that this was the end for the Muppets as we know them. However, for a faction of fans, there were still doubts. What were the issues that Steve apparently had? Why did they terminate him immediately instead of just talking things out? In addition, a few insiders seem to imply something more complex than just Disney bad happened. More information was going to be needed before they make a decision and not just jump down Disney's throat. On the 17th, Disney made a statement on the situation. The role of Kermit the Frog is an iconic one that is beloved by fans, and we take our responsibility to protect the integrity of that character very seriously. We raised concerns about Steve's repeated unacceptable business conduct over a period of many years, and he consistently failed to address the feedback. The decision to part ways was a difficult one, which was made in consultation with the Henson family and has their full support. Also, on the same day, Cheryl Henson, one of Jim's daughters, made a pretty heated Facebook post. Steve's version of history is ridiculously self-serving. My father never asked him to perform Kermit, my brother Brian did. Steve's performance of Kermit has strayed far from my father's good-hearted, compassionate leader of the Muppets. Steve performed Kermit as a bitter, angry, depressed victim. Worst of all, in the past few years, he has not been funny or fun. Recasting Kermit is long overdue. Stop with the pity party. Let's get back to the true spirit of Jim Henson's Kermit. Damn! Steve soon responded, saying in interviews that he was fired for passing critical notes during the production of Muppets 2015 and union disputes. Steve claimed that Disney offered him honors and Disney Legend Awards if he had signed an NDA and pretended like he retired and just moved on. However, the Hensons had a different story. Brian Henson, one of Jim's sons, said that Steve made outrageous demands and that he often played brinkmanship, and that he was down to recast Kermit for many years. He claimed that Kermit's character had gotten stale and that Steve played him as a flat character who lost his more mischievous streak. Cheryl said in an interview that he was hard to work with, and Lisa Henson, another of Jim's daughters, agreed with Brian and also stated that he blackballed young performers. After all this information came out, fans had mixed emotions to say the least. Some still supported Steve, believing his side of the story, asking why they kept him for so long if he was as bad as they claimed, and that Kermit's personality was mainly up to the writers. Still others felt that the Hensons' words were final. If they, as well as Muppet Studios themselves, all agreed to this, then something must have been up. A lot just didn't know how to feel. In reality, what truly happened was most likely a mix of both accounts. This public debacle shone quite a bit of attention on the Muppets, and unfortunately, not in a good way. Debates took place on fan pages, random people on the internet claimed that Jim Henson wouldn't have liked this, he's rolling in his grave right now, he would have done or said this, etc. Petitions were made to bring Steve back. A few were angry at Cheryl's Facebook post, and they claimed that her opinion didn't matter because she hadn't worked with the Muppets for so long. There's one particular fan who was very, very defensive of Disney. But most of all, everyone was just shocked and confused by the whole thing. I hope that something better than what we have from Disney currently comes along, the aftermath. After the drama died down, it seemed everyone involved just wanted to move on. Matt Fogle is still performing Kermit. His first performance is in the Muppet Thought of the Week video I linked above, and I will link that down below for you. Reactions to his performance have been, well, it depends on who you ask. Of course, you got people that just don't like change, but there are a good number of people who simply don't think his voice fits Kermit that well. There were those that didn't like it, but then it started to grow on them. I'm in the camp of, I'm not a big fan, but maybe I'll grow to like it eventually. Oh, and also you can't watch any video with Matt's Kermit without at least one comment about his voice. Kermit sounds weird, this isn't Kermit, and it's still a thing. Steve has started his own YouTube puppet show called Cave In, a sort of calling show using Discord instead of a phone about a literal internet troll named Weldon. I haven't seen enough of it to get a reaction, but Steve's fans seem to like it, so take that how you will. In the fanbase, there's still some debate. There are people who are still rallying for Steve to return, and there are others who think they should shut up and Disney was in the right to fire him, but the majority, at least from my perspective, really just wants to leave this whole thing behind. In terms of the future of the Muppets, the most recent big project since the firing of Steve is Muppets Now. It's a Disney Plus exclusive that's made up of multiple skits that just finished its first season on the 4th. Critics enjoyed it, but fans were more on the skeptical side, with people not liking the format, how the same skits were being used over and over, how they shoved teaching aspects into the show, and how there's an overabundance of Miss Piggy. I think overall, the reaction in the fanbase was meh. In the end, the Muppets will continue without Steve. Whether or not that's a good thing is up to viewer discretion. Too long didn't read or listen in this case. Steve Whitmire is fired from the Muppets because he was apparently really bossy. Steve claims he wasn't, Jim Henson's kid says he was, everyone is confused. I think that anybody who's made it this far in the video is probably feeling the same way as the majority of the fandom, which is slightly confused about everything that's happened. Of course, the problem is that none of us were there. None of us were there in the meetings. It's all he said, she said, they said. There is absolutely no way for us to know exactly what happened. My consensus is that if there are 3 people saying that this person is really bad to work with, then it's most likely that they are. You very rarely get 3 opinions like that. The only issue is that they are the Henson kids. So that can go either one of 2 ways, depending on how you look at it. On the one hand, they're Hensons. They are the owners of the Muppets, so if they don't like the way it's going, then, their word is law. It could be word of God in this situation. But on the other hand, it's 3 siblings ganging up against 1 worker. Do you understand the issue? The fact that he brought in union, I don't know. I think that everybody is in a status of not really knowing what's going on here. Because, on the other hand, if you take away the whole influence that they have over the Muppets and the fact that their father was the creator and all that, it is 3 siblings against another person. And that in itself can be very intimidating, especially when you consider the power that they have, but also the fact that people were mentioning that Cheryl didn't have that much of a hand in the Muppets. Nevertheless, it is her father's legacy, so you could understand why she would feel a certain amount of protection towards that. Now, back to the union. I got a little bit off topic there. I would be interesting to know which way it was going around that. Now, when it comes to corporations versus one artist, I am 100% always going to take the side of the artist. I know that Disney bad was seen as an oversimplification, but in a lot of ways that is the truth, when you consider the cheap stuff that they're churning out based on exploitation. So it doesn't surprise me that they would be treating the talent the same way as well. Now, I have actually noticed this change in character, in Kermit's character that they were talking about. He has gone from the friendly leader, the one that looks after everyone, to this kind of miserable... The whole divorce from Miss Piggy, I actually liked it. I thought that it worked. I thought it was an interesting adult situation to go in. The whole but think of the kids. I mean, it was supposed to be for adults, right? It's supposed to be for adults who grew up with the Muppets. And it isn't just the Muppets that are doing this. I'm going to pop up a lovely little picture of him now. This is Basil Brush, and if you are remotely familiar with Basil Brush, if you are British, then you will know that he was like a children's puppet that was mostly on kids' TV, both when my father was a kid and when I was a kid, and now he's making his way into like the more adult comedy. I've seen him on some political shows. I've seen him as a guest voice on... Takeshi's Castle recently, so it's definitely possible to adultify children's characters when, the children that they were originally for are now adults. I think that definitely makes sense. So I don't actually have a problem with the character, but then again, as I said, I'm not a hardcore fan. I've seen most of the films and I've definitely enjoyed them. I think that the Muppets really are funny and I do enjoy a lot about it. But I wouldn't necessarily get that clingy over original characterizations. That wouldn't be so much of a problem for me. But then again, I'm not the kind of person that goes on, Muppet fandom discussion boards where people who clearly care a lot more about it than me, they probably have a bit of a stronger opinion. And let's face it, their opinion on this matters more than mine does, because I'm just a casual fan. I think the truth behind the union being involved is either one of two ways. Either, yep, that definitely was a problem, that tensions started to come up, and eventually he was like, you know what, I'm going to contact my union, got the union involved, and then Disney were like, well, if you want rights, get out. It could have been one of those situations. However, what makes me think otherwise regarding this is Steve's original statement about having left the Muppets. Now, they could have waited until there was an official statement, but he seemed to just come out straight away saying, I have no idea why they fired me. This is terrible. Why is my life so hard? It doesn't seem accurate that they would do that. And then for them to be saying, well, we had this issue, we had that issue, we had this issue, we had that issue. There were so many tongue twisters in this. Like, I had to re-record so many things. But for them to all come out and then for him to then say, oh, yeah, I made notes that they didn't like and that's why they fired me. Why are you saying why are you saying that you didn't know if you're then able to go, oh yeah, they didn't like my notes? You could have said something like creative differences and then that puts the blame on no one, but there was a certain amount of bitterness there. And when you consider, like, let's assume that Steve was just a terrible person to work with, as everyone said. If you have finally got rid of someone after all these, because they're not just going to get rid of him easily. He said that they jumped to drastic action, and I think it's pretty clear from the way that they responded that it wasn't as drastic as he is trying to make out. So when you think about it from that point of view, it does make a fair bit of sense that Cheryl would have retaliated in such a way, because she would have had all these difficulties in working with Steve, only to have all this come back. I can understand why she then made her Facebook post, but it does seem like it was just professional differences, my apologies, that really should have just, there was a clash, it wasn't going to work. How the Muppets are going to go for the future, only time will tell. Maybe people will get used to the voice. I haven't actually heard Matt Fogel's voice, but it could work out. It could stand the test of time. I'm personally a little disappointed that we're not going to be seeing Muppets 2015 again, because I did really enjoy that series. I thought that it was definitely the way for the Muppets to go, and I found it really funny. I would actually look forward to when it was coming on. And so the fact that they thought that it was really bad is actually quite disappointing. I spoke about this with my father and said that I'm, because he came through to talk to me about Bagpuss, and I said, oh, strangely enough, I'm recording a thing about the Muppets. And I mentioned about how people didn't like the new one, and he's like, I thought it was really funny. So, it isn't, again, as the OP said, Sheray's son, thank you for writing all of this. They also pointed out that some people, most fans seem to enjoy it. It was just the critics that had a problem with it. Maybe they're listening too much to critics. I don't know. Anyway, thank you for hearing me ramble about something that I'm only a casual fan of. I very much appreciate it. And with that, I think we'll bring the firing of Kermit to a close. Thank you. That's it for our second episode of Hobby Drama. I have to say, it is really interesting to see all of the niche little bits of drama that the hardcore fans as well get into, that the rest of us might not hear about if it wasn't for this subreddit. And as always, if you want to let me know about a drama that's happened in your niche community and you don't want to post it on subreddit, feel free to drop me an email. You can find that on my channel. And as I say at the end of every episode, if you enjoyed hearing from this subreddit or would like to hear from any other, then do let me know in the comments. And until then, I'll see you all next time.